Okay, hello, how are you? We are so glad to see you. If,
Hi.
if mega conferences are not your cup of tea, you're going to be interested to discover the Blue Lake Christian Writers Retreat with a gorgeous setting and a faculty to rival those bigger conferences. Hi, I'm Patricia A Durgin, and this is Marketers on a Mission. We present marketing tutorials and interviews by and for Christian writers, speakers, and artists. This is episode number 192. The Blue Lake Christian Writers Retreat Director, Marilyn Turk, is my guest today. Hello, Marilyn. How are you today?
Hi.
So glad you could
I'm
come.
great. How are you?
I'm really good, and you've already had a busy day and served others and then made it back in time for the program, and I appreciate that. So tell us first, the very first thing I want to know about you, Marilyn Turk, is why do you love lighthouses so much?
I don't know. I think they represent a lot of things. There's something noble about them. Um, they're different. They're unique. I love the fact that they're by water because I really like water. And I wanted to know what it was like to live in one. You know, when you research lighthouses, you get a lot of statistics about when it was built and how it was constructed. But I wanted to know what it was like to live in one. So I started doing a lot of reading about the people, the keepers who had kept the lighthouses. And that began my quest. I actually saw my first real live lighthouse when I moved to Florida, and I was working in a real job. I was making a sales call over at the Naval Air Station in Pensacola. And I had come out of an account over there, which is a museum, I think. And I looked across the street and I saw a lighthouse. I'm like, oh, a real lighthouse. I have to see it. So I drove across the street and I looked for a way to get in, and I saw a truck turn into a driveway, and I followed it. And the rest of it's history. I don't know how much you want to know today, but, you know, there's more to that story. But I felt like that was God had a hand in that, because I ended up having a private tour. They were not open that day, but I got a private tour with a docent who knew all the history of the area. And it was like God said, look what I'm doing for you. So that got me hooked.
You've even hooked your husband and one of your grandsons into this adventure, haven't you?
Oh, yes. Well, you know, I was blogging about lighthouses when, I think when we got married. We've been married 10 years now. And I wrote a blog about how to be a caretaker at a lighthouse, because there are a few opportunities like that. And my brother read my blog, and he wrote me and said, I'm surprised you haven't done that. And I'm like, why haven't I done that? And then all of a sudden, we're retired now. So I asked my husband, I'm like, would you be interested in doing something like that? Yeah. And so we ended up doing that. We've done it twice now. We were caretakers of Little River Lighthouse off the coast of Maine, Cutler, Maine. Amazing experience. And the second time we went, our grandson was allowed to come. He was a little too young the first time. But because he thinks he's a lighthouse keeper now.
I'm just a little bit jealous, I got to tell you, because I like lighthouses myself. I really do. So you've published 7 books, both fiction and a collection of your own devotionals. Then you have contributed to, I think, 4 or 5 Chicken Soup for the Soul devotionals. You got a lot going on over here, Marilyn.
Well, yeah, it's one of those things that I had to try it. When someone says, you know, here's an opportunity, I have to try it. So I don't always succeed, but that's how I've ended up doing so many things. I kind of took baby steps into writing and tried, you know, I think maybe The Upper Room was the first one I was in, and then I pitched a focus of on the family and got into that. And, you know, it's just been one thing after another, a variety. What my father used to say, a jack of all trades, I think, in the writing business, but I've learned I can't do it all now.
But you're still going to move forward with your fiction and your devotionals, do you think?
Yes, that's definitely my niche. I'm blessed to be a contributor to the Daily Guidepost devotion book that comes out each year, and I hope that'll continue, and that I'll be invited back next time. And what else do I do in devotions? There's another one. Oh, I do write a blog. But my Lighthouse Devotions I took out of print because I wanted to republish it, and changed it, edited a little bit, and add to it. So it's currently not in print. I got an email about 2 days ago. Amazon is showing one for $900. I want to meet the person who will pay $900 for that book, because it may be worth a lot to me, but I don't know who's got that book trying to sell it for $900, but it's not in print now. So someone contacted me and wanted to know how they could get a copy of it. And I even had a lighthouse this summer, a lighthouse I sold it to a couple of years ago up in Beavertail, Rhode Island. The Beavertail Lighthouse said, "We need some more of your books for our bookstore." And I'm just so honored, because a lot of people don't want to carry devotional material in a secular environment. So I sent her almost all of what I had left, but I do feel like I just really have a desire to get it back out there, because there are so many people who like lighthouses and who see the spiritual connection. And I've used stories that I blogged about for years, and the first book had 52, and I have enough material to make it at least 3 times that big. So it's just that it costs money to make. It costs the end user money, like the buyer, because of the color. I want to use color photographs. People like to see lighthouses in color.
Yes, true.
And of course, whenever you do that, you raise the price of the book. So, it's difficult. I want to do it, but I also want to give it the best quality. But people are so used to getting the bargains these days that most people don't want to pay a lot of money for a book, especially if it's devotional, something they can carry around.
We were talking.
Well, pray for that end and for me to have time to redo that.
We were talking before we got on live, and you have published just this year. You published a book in April, one in June, one in July, one in September, and one in November. And I just want to know how you did that.
Well, it's sort of, I want to say accidental. It's not, because I know God had a hand in it. One thing, the book that came out in July was contracted 2 years ago, I think. So, it was maybe a year ago. So I knew it was coming out in July, and I had turned that in advance. The other book of that group was a republishing with a new publisher of a book that had released before. That publisher is Forget Me Not Romances, and that was a godsend for me. Cynthia Hickey is the publisher of it. She's the president of it, I guess I should say. It's also called Winged Publications. I had prayed, God, you have to be careful what you pray for, because I had prayed to stay busy.
Oh.
I discovered last year I had no books came out last year. No new books came out last year, because a book had come out the year before. 2, 3 had come out the year before. Nothing came out last year. Discovered that if you don't have something in the workings, you're not going to have something to show for it.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a lesson, like, I need to stay busy. So I prayed that I would stay busy, and Mrs. Hickey at Forget Me Not is happy to keep me busy, and that's a prayer. So she has published, 3 of the books, and then the other book was published by Lighthouse Publishing of the Carolinas. Mm-hmm. And then I had a novella come out in a novella collection in November. So that was one that was contracted a year ago, and that was coming out in November. So it just kind of happened. There are 3 different publishers involved in that whole process. Not to mention the Daily Guidepost, which of course is, you turn that in 2 years in advance. But
2 years?
It just happened that way. Huh?
You turn in
I
your
didn't hear you.
daily guidepost 2 years in advance. That's the requirement. Interesting.
Yes.
There's a tidbit for you if you're listening, and you're considering submitting to Guidepost Daily. So,
You're kind of cutting out on me. Can you hear me?
Yes, I'm not having any problems on this end.
Okay. Tell me what you said again.
Would you like to disengage and rejoin?
No, I think I can hear you now.
Okay, all right. Well, let's talk about the nuts and bolts of the conference, the Blue Lake Christian Writers Retreat. I'm just going to run through them, and you let me know if I miss anything, okay?
Okay.
The dates are March the 27th through the 30th. That's Wednesday through Saturday. Is that correct?
Saturday after lunch.
And it starts at registration opens up from 12 to 5 on Wednesday.
Correct.
And then there's a keynote that evening with Bob Hostetler, who was super fantastic. If you've never heard Bob Hostetler speak or read any of his writings, he's just top notch, isn't he, Marilyn?
He is. Now, the speaker arrangement may not be the same this next time as it is online right now. Part of what's online is this year's, which was in May of this year. So we're still tweaking the keynotes and who's going to talk when. But I know Bob will be speaking at some point. I'm just not sure if he's going to kick it off.
Okay.
But I have some wonderful Bob. He didn't know me from Adam, and when he accepted my invitation, I was so excited.
Yes. I want to talk more about him and the other faculty members in just a moment. Let me go back to the nuts and bolts, and that is the location is the Blue Lake United Methodist Camp in Andalusia, Alabama, which is way southern Alabama.
Right.
The nearest airport, if you're going to fly in, and you even though you're local regional, you get people from all over the country, don't you?
We do.
That must be very satisfying.
Yes, and surprising. Because I thought it would just be regional, but when you go online and you hear that people are going to come in for something that it's just we had a nun come in from, it was Wisconsin this year, and I said, do you know how far that is? Have you ever been this far south? She thoroughly enjoyed it, but what a treat.
For those who fly in, the nearest airport is VPS Destin Fort Walton Beach Airport. That's 3 different names, all smashed into one title for an airport. And you only take 100 enrollees, am I correct?
Yes.
How did you determine that? Did you always start off when the conference, the original vision, was it for it to be small and tight and personable?
Yes. I think I wanted 100 to start with, and it didn't reach that. And, I was a little bit disappointed, and I thought, well, maybe I set my sights too high. And then the next year, we ended up with the same number as the previous year, which is right around 77. And I realized that maybe that's what God wants for this conference and not what I want. So a lot of people want single rooms. Now, we can accommodate more people, but they won't get as many, there aren't as many nice single rooms available. They're like dorm rooms because, Blue Lake has been there for a long time. And there are lots of retreats there. But the fact of the matter is, I've been to a lot of conferences, and a lot of them are big, even though they may be out in a country setting. And this just feels like, because it is a retreat center, it feels like a retreat. And a retreat, you usually think of being smaller than a conference, but I also wanted it to offer everything that a big conference offered. So that's why I called it a retreat. Now, I know some people might argue with me and say a retreat is when a few writers get together and they go off by themselves and they write. That's true. But this is, to me, it's like a conference / retreat because it's also a spiritual retreat.
Mm-hmm.
And I've had a number of people tell me that they felt the Spirit of God there at our conference, through the music, through the prayers. We have a prayer minister who's just wonderful. She's just gifted in that way. And she takes appointments, and we have, the speakers are all such godly people that it's just infused in the atmosphere. And I don't want to get ahead of you, but even someone on our faculty that we both know and love said that was a spiritual breakthrough for her, being at that retreat.
Wonderful, wonderful. The deadline there's an early bird that runs out on December the 31st. And after the early bird, then the prices go up. But there's no need for you to have walk-ins because I'm thinking you sell out every year, don't you?
Not yet. No. The cutoff is mainly for boarding because we have so many rooms and so many meals to prepare for. So the conference center wants us to turn in our count 2 weeks beforehand. And so I have to have a cutoff for people who are going to stay there and eat there. Now, commuters are still eligible to show up, but you have to tell them that please bring your own lunch or something, unless you've registered ahead of time for the meals, which you can do. You can be a commuter and you can eat too, but you have to go online to do it ahead of time. And we have a lot of people who have commuted from, to the area. It's 1 hour north of Niceville, where I live. It's exactly 1 hour from my doorstep to the conference center. So we say it's just over the Florida line. We still want to claim it as Florida, but they claim us as Alabama. So what can I say?
The early bird has to do with the price increase. There are multiple levels of cost based upon lodging. So if you don't have any lodging, then you would be a commuter. So let me just give you an overview. There's a range. The early bird prices go from as low as $80 to as high as $435. And after from January 1st until the conference, it goes from $90 to $495. That's after the early bird discount is no longer applicable. $90 to $495. And you don't have to get the most expensive package. It's just available. And if you're a commuter, then if you want a meal package, as Marilyn just said, you'll need to either bring your lunch if you register late or register on time. And that meal package has different levels as well. If you want to stay for 1 day or one meal or the whole meal package, and so forth. So all of that information is on the website. And I've got all those links already pulled up for you. So you don't have to worry about trying to write everything down. And these are very reasonable prices, Marilyn.
Yes, that was my intention. I wanted, having gone to a lot of conferences, they could be expensive. The travel is expensive, and the conference itself is expensive. Of course, it's a lot bigger. But to offer quality, I have to cover cost, but I want to keep it affordable. So I want to make someone feel as if they're getting the full conference package for their money. But even if it's not, a huge conference. So we're trying to cover all the bases and in what we're offering.
I think that you're doing a good job of it, and the faculty, which we're going to get to in a moment, I mean, they're just so outstanding. So I don't want to jump ahead of myself, but I want to get over there to that faculty. Let's talk about the scholarships, though. A few more things before we get there. The scholarships, you have one. And is this your first year, I believe, for the scholarship?
No, we actually offered, this is the third time I've offered scholarships. I think the first year I offered scholarships to a couple of people who I knew who wanted to come, who didn't have the money. The next year I put it on the website that college scholarships were available that people had to apply for. And I didn't get that many applications, but I questioned, I communicated with them to make sure they were serious.
Mm-hmm.
And I think out of 4 that I was considering, 2 withdrew. 1 kind of fell off the radar. And another lady worked it out. She was coming from around Nashville, outside of Nashville, Tennessee. And she worked it out so that her whole family could drive her down and stay with their grandmother in Alabama so she could go to the conference. Nice. And bless her heart, she is the sweetest thing in the world, and she is now coming to this year, paying to come. So to me, that's rewarding to see that people who you offer the scholarship to is sort of like the pay it forward kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yes, yes. I also like the fact that you've got on your website that people can work off, so to speak. That's not how you phrased it on the website. So they can come in and work and be an addition, serve at the conference, and that's helpful as well toward the scholarships. And also, if they get someone in their local area to register as a result of them handing out pamphlets about it or information or telling other people about it and getting the word out, spreading the word about the conference, then they get a little bit off of the cost as well. So practical applications there.
Right. And that, I think that sounds like the roommate discount, but everyone is willing to help. It's so amazing. People will show up and say, what can I do? What can I do? I'm not a really good delegator. I'm kind of used to doing it all by myself. And so I started it all by myself, and I wasn't prepared to tell somebody else what to do because it was all up here,
Yes.
But after last year's, I keep saying last year, it was actually spring of this year, but the last one, I had several people come forward and say, we want to help you do something. And so let us do it.
That wrench it from your hands.
Yeah, especially since now I have more writing to do. I need more help.
Yeah, if you're going to be publishing 7 books a year, you're going to need more help.
I don't think that's going to happen every year. But I'm not that fast a writer. But some of the ones that were published this year, by the way, like this first 2 had already been written, but one had to be republished, and the next one had to be edited. So I didn't start from scratch. Yeah. That makes it a little different.
Yes. So also now, for the very first time this year, you're going to have a 2-hour pre-conference workshop called Creating a Book Proposal. And this is for both fiction and nonfiction. And the 2 instructors, Kim Vogel-Sawyer and Connie Stevens, promised that by the end of the class, attendees are going to have a rough draft of their proposal. That is crazy wonderful.
Isn't that great? I'm so blessed. That's another thing God's worked out. Both of them are such wonderful people. And Connie's one of the people who stepped up immediately to help me with the first conference. She lives in Georgia and I live in Florida. And what can I do? What can I do? Let me do this. Let me do that. And she's a very crafty person. Crafty like with crafts, So, one thing that we do that I think is kind of special, but because we're small, we give little welcome gift bags to the people who come. And so she helped me make those pretty. And just, I don't know, whatever else that she offers. She's the sweetest person. And then she and Kim Vogel-Sawyer are best friends. Oh. And so Kim wants to come to see Connie, so Kim kind of makes a detour through Atlanta so that she and Connie can spend time together because Kim lives in Kansas. So the 2 of them get to hang out together and have fun together, and it makes it great.
And you benefit.
Excuse me?
And you benefit.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's good when my faculty like each other.
So also new this year, Eva Marie Everson she's not new to the conference at all, but she's going to be presenting something that she's not presented before. Will you tell us about that?
Yes, it's called Labyrinth, and I wish I had the description in front of me right now. It's new to me, and she said that this all came about from her first time at Blue Lake because she had kind of a spiritual awakening there. She was by herself, in a room by herself, and I don't know the details, but somehow God spoke to her while she was there and started her on a new spiritual journey. And since that time, and she credits Blue Lake with being where it started. She has been to a kind of a writer's workshop retreat with Robert Benson, and it really inspired her. And so she's developed this class about determining God's will in your writing. And when she first suggested it, I wasn't sure that people would want to take it. She told me that she had offered up at Blue Ridge and that people did want to take it, that, she closed out the class. I said, okay, well, let's try. And the class is full now. So, here we are, 4 months out. There might be a possibility she's going to keep a waiting list because she only accepted 8 people. But she's going to keep a waiting list to see if maybe she'll expand it to a couple of people. But I'm just really blessed that she knew that was something people would like. And the other interesting thing is that Blue Lake has a little labyrinth writing path, a walking path that's a labyrinth. So she's going to take her group out to walk the path.
And she's a great choice for that, isn't she?
Well, I got to praise Eva Marie. And the funny thing is, I didn't know her well, but I had seen her at the conferences I'd been going to. And like I said, I didn't know her well. And what conferences tend to do is invite faculty from their region.
Yeah.
It just so happens that I had to go outside my region to get the faculty that I wanted. But Eva is more in my region, even though it's just about as farther to her house than it is from here to Atlanta, to tell you the truth, even though she lives in Florida too. But when I invited her to be on the faculty, I wasn't sure, or with any of them, to tell you the truth, that they would accept, because we were new. It's like, who are you, and how do you know what you're doing? And the truth was, I was nobody and didn't know what I was doing. But God is the one that told me to do this. And I know that you're not supposed to meet an editor and say that, but it is the truth, because I just felt this need to have a smaller, more local, for this region. There was no Christian Writers Conference for the Gulf Coast. And I felt there was a need, but I needed it to be affordable. And I was at Blue Lake for another kind of retreat or something. It was like God said, this is where you need to do it, because Blue Lake was more affordable. Whereas, people would love to come to Destin to hang out, but we can't afford Destin. That's a whole different ballgame. So I want to let the people in Florida know that it may be in Alabama, but it's really close to Florida.
Yeah, it's just right over there.
It's that far. But anyway, when I invited Eva Marie, she accepted right away. And the other thing I didn't know, and I also knew that she had her own conference, and she helped with Blue Ridge, and she was big stuff, and multi-published, and an editor for Lighthouse Publishing, and she came to my conference, and she just offered to do anything I needed her to do. I was blown away. There was we needed pictures. Next thing I know, he was taking pictures. This is last year, and she's taking pictures. I'm like, I hadn't even thought about pictures. And then I had a little technical problem. Well, Lord knows that's not my gift, but she knew more about how to handle that. So she jumped into that. And it was like wherever I needed help, she jumped in. And if I had any questions, I could ask her, how do you do this, or what should I do? So she just turned out to be such a gift. And I can't say enough good about her. And the fact that she said she'd come back again, it was like, really? Okay. So, yeah, it's been a blessing. It's been such a blessing. And to these faculty, you put these people on a pedestal, at least, when you're a newbie, and find out that they're real people and they have real issues just like we do. And they're really human and they're not snobs. I thought Eva was a snob at first before I ever met her. And then I got to know her, and she is the kindest, sweetest person. I just, how mistaken we can be when we try to judge. Isn't that
so true? That is so true.
Yes.
I'm glad you said that, Marilyn. We do have all those preconceived notions, and they get in our way, and they keep us from God's blessings if we let them.
Absolutely.
Now, there's some awards that are going to be connected to a writers' contest. The awards are the Living Waters Awards, and they are directly related to the writing contest. You have 8 categories for people to enter, and $20 entry fee per entry for each category. And the deadline for that is March the 1st, and it's a firm deadline. And it's also for unpublished work. So if it's been published, then don't submit it. All of that information is also in the on the website. How long have you had these awards?
This will be the first year.
That's what I thought. So I'm wondering, how does what's the thought process that you didn't have some feature the previous year and now you have that feature this year? Whatever the feature is it an opening in funds? Is it the Lord's leading, a combination of the both? Had you always wanted it, but you just couldn't swing it? How does that work for this particular conference?
Well, I considered it, but I didn't want to start out with it. I wanted to, first of all, when I started this, I didn't know I'd be doing it a second time, now a third time. People just want to do it again. I want us to do it again. What I have discovered, and through my own writing, people like to be affirmed. Mm-hmm. We have our love languages, mm-hmm. and I know mine is affirmation. I like to be patted on the back. And I think writers are so susceptible to depression in one way. If someone critiques something, you feel like when you've written something, you put your life out there, you're revealing your heart for everybody to throw darts at. Yeah. And so when you hear something negative, it can really sink your ship, if you let it. And, but, an award can mean so much. And it doesn't have to be the biggest trophy in the world, but it can be just something to tell you did a good job doing this. This was good. This was maybe one of the best ones that we had sent in. And I thought we need to offer that. And I didn't want it to be a long, drawn-out ceremony. I know sometimes some of the award ceremonies, it seems like they're just really long, and I feel like the people don't get the recognition they need because there's so many people getting recognized. And particularly the larger conferences, there are a lot of people, there are a lot of awards, there are a lot of, participants. But since we're small, I wanted to make it a much bigger hoopla, I guess, that you won this. And I tell you, by the time we hand out our awards, you're probably going to know everybody there already because that's what we do. We're a big family. That's what people have told me over and over again on evaluations. I felt like I was in your home. I felt like you invited me in your home. And, I just met the family. And, they just bond. And so people are going to know who you are by the end of the thing, and they're going to be able to celebrate with you. Yes. And the person who penned the name, I asked for votes for the name of the award from, because probably if I'd done it, it would have had something to do with lighthouses. But one of our attendees, who actually wrote a really nice article for our paper, and she called it Living Waters. And she suggested that we call the awards that. And I thought, well, that's very appropriate, because that's, we are by water, and it's going back to the spiritual, Jesus said he would give us living water. So I feel like that's part of who we are. And it's not something that's stagnant. It's an ongoing, replenishing process.
That makes sense. And each year we have to figure out, are we going to add something? We don't have to do it all at one time, do we? We don't have to have a mega conference the very first year. That's not even possible because you can't handle all that. People can't absorb all that. We grow little by little.
You did ask me that question, how I come to add things. Well, I get the evaluations at the end of the conference and ask people to tell me what they like, what they didn't like, what they'd like to see added. We do not do room service, so don't put that down. Somebody said, one of them, they wish that they'd had daily towel service. I'm like, this is not the Hyatt, I mean, this is Blue Lake Camp. You get the name camp, it's where you go for retreats, and we will, provide what you need. But, don't expect to be pampered. Because I can't, I'm not your mother. I've got enough. And I had a hard enough time managing what to do. But it's adequate, and it's comfortable, and we do our best. And so out of some of the things that we've gotten suggestions for is, oh, it's so pretty here. Why don't we go for walks? Well, it's kind of hard to fit that into the schedule. But we had a man that came last year who is very outspoken. I know him from my church. Anybody want to take a walk? Meet me outside at 5 o'clock. We'll go for a walk. So I mean those things kind of happen, and the other things you have to plan for. Like I also always look for if there's a class that we're missing. There's something somebody's looking for. Like the first year, I got some feedback that we didn't have enough offered for nonfiction people. So I tried to expand into the nonfiction area. So we have probably 50-50 split now of fiction and nonfiction. Like Bob Hostetler and James Watkins, for example, Susan King, they're all nonfiction people. So then I had, somebody else, said they wanted their instructor to pray before each class. I'm like, well, we should do that when we pray in our general session. But I had a faculty meeting to start with. I said, we've been asked to pray before each session. We can do that. We're all church people.
Yeah.
And trying to think of some of the other things that I've been asked. I have to mention our yoga. Can I get that in now?
Yeah, we're going to get to Susan in just a minute. We just have another little bit because Susan's been a guest.
Okay.
So we definitely don't want to forget Susan. Let's talk about the critique.
That's right. Yeah.
Let's talk about the critiques. Tell us about them. Now, you're not ready for them yet. On the website, it just says that information is going to be soon, and you can start submitting on January the 1st. But when that opens up, Marilyn, will there be 15-minute appointments? Will people bring their work when they come? Will they submit it ahead of time? Have you made those decisions yet?
Well, a critique gives you the opportunity to have your work looked at before the conference. And that's when the faculty member who's doing it will have the time to read it, and make suggestions. And then when you meet with them, they can go over your work. However, if you show up and you want an appointment with a faculty member, don't expect them to have time to read your work while you're sitting in front of them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's not what an appointment is for. An appointment is maybe to pitch an idea or to get some feedback, to maybe show them a one sheet or something like that. But if you want something read and you want to know what direction to go, get some good critique about it, that's when you need to send this in to one of the faculty members. They'll be listed for whichever critique it is. And they will do it at a time that's convenient for them.
Mm-hmm.
But they obviously can't critique everyone's work while they're sitting in front of you for 15 minutes.
Mm-hmm. And is there an additional charge for that, Marilyn?
There is, and I forgot what it is.
That's all right, because it's not up, so
Okay.
That's what we just wanted to know.
Right. And we are constantly updating the website.
Mm-hmm.
So much of it is going to be the same, but some of it will be different and new. So I've asked all the faculty members to submit to me any changes they want to make, or if we want to change a workshop. I do know that what's up there for Eva Marie, Michelle, and Susan King is all current. Mm-hmm. But I'm still waiting on the other guys to get back to me and tell me if they want to do the same thing as last year or change it some.
Okay.
But we're constantly, updating. So keep looking.
So part of the registration fee is the one-on-one meeting as well, and that's about 15 minutes, and that's where you come with an idea, and they're impromptu meetings.
Right. And you need to have an idea of who you want to talk to. In other words, you get an opportunity to look at the website and see what this faculty member represents. And so, for instance, you would take fiction to a nonfiction person,
Mm-hmm.
And vice versa.
Mm-hmm.
So, that you get to choose an appointment with the person who's going to be best suited to meet with you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And if they need help knowing who that person might be, they can ask, can't they?
Yeah, that's true. And another thing is when they get there, we let them sign up for 2 appointments. And after the first night, they can come back to the appointment room and see if there's any openings,
Mm-hmm.
and they can sign up for more. But we want everybody to have a chance to sign up for 2 to start with.
It's always a treat when you are able to, there's an opening, somebody had to leave unexpectedly, so their opening is available, their appointment is not going to be filled. And that's nice when you're at the right place at the right time, and the Lord gives you that 3rd or 4th appointment, and you're meeting with somebody that you didn't even think you might be able to, and it works out that well. But it's good to have everybody have an even playing field at the beginning. That's the way it needs to be.
And that happened to me at Blue Ridge years ago, and I have to credit Cecil Murphy for spurring me on to write my first book, because I walked into an appointment room and I was waiting, and it was this big room. I looked around and everybody was talking to somebody except for Cecil. Mm-hmm. And I walked over to him and I said, "Can I talk to you?" And he said, "Well, my appointment didn't show up, so go ahead and sit down." So I ended up having an appointment with him, which just, I'll cry thinking about it, because I said, "I have this idea for this book, and this is the way I see the book." And he looked at me, he said, "Well, where is it?" I'm like, "Well, I haven't written it yet." He said, "Why not?" And I said, "Well, because I want to do some more research. I write historical fiction." Mm-hmm. So I'm like, "I want to do some more research about it." And he said, "Honey, I know people who have researched for 10 years and not written a book." He said, "Do you need permission to write a book?" And I said, "Well, I might not be ready." That was the thing. I might not be ready to write a book. And he said, "Well, do you need permission to write a book?" And I said, "I guess so." And so he took my hands in his, and he said, "I give you permission to write a book." And it was like, okay, now I can write a book because Cecil gave me permission. So
he is so wonderful. He always knew exactly what to say.
He is. I just love him to death. He came to our conference in 2017.
Oh, he did?
And then he retired, of all things. Yeah. But he said he wasn't going to do that anymore. But
he put his time in. Decades of service.
Oh, yeah.
Um, so let's talk about the classes now. You have designated these when they're ready to be posted online. They're going to be designated as beginner, intermediate, and advanced. And people don't have to stick in that necessarily, but at least they'll have that knowledge so they can make a wise decision. Is that correct?
Right, that's right. I mean, some people who've already published books may feel like they want to go back through, sit through a fiction continuing class like Kim Sawyer does. I would say she's beginner and intermediate because she tells you all the parts of writing a fiction book in her continuing class. And, you know, I think review is good for you. And I'm one of those people who always wants to learn. So I would like to take every class that we offer. But somehow I just never managed to do that.
And the continuing classes they meet 3 different times on the same topic, and the workshops meet twice. Is that correct?
No, the workshops usually meet once.
Okay.
Now, what has happened is some people have 2-part workshops, but not everybody. Most of the workshops are just a one-time deal.
Mm-hmm.
A workshop is an hour and a half. The continuing class is about an hour and 15 minutes from each day. So Thursday, Friday, and Saturday mornings are the continuing classes.
Mm-hmm.
And then the workshops will be Thursday and Friday afternoons. And they will not meet on Saturday.
Okay.
So we will offer, I think last year we offered, I can't remember, 6 or 12 workshops in the afternoon. We have 2 or 3 going on at the same time frame. So it's 3, 6 each day. And then 6 the next day. And if we have a larger enrollment than we did, if I see that our enrollment's going to be larger than it was this time,
mm-hmm.
you know, like by about 20, 25%, I will add an additional workshop because these faculty members have other things they can teach.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And I'm also probably, I think I might have already put on the website. I have to look and see. You know, we have our night owls and our early birds. And I can't put Michelle Medlock Adams and Eva Marie Everson in the same room because they're dear friends, but one is a night owl and one is an early bird. So, and I have to say, Eva, I tell Eva, I steal things from her all the time because she started night owl classes. She might not have started them, but she had them at her conference. And knowing there's some people that are night owls, some people want to stay up and visit, you know, after our last keynote. They don't go straight to bed like some of the other people do. And so Michelle is the perfect person to teach a late night workshop. I say late night. That's like that's like 9 to 10. You know, there are people who would still like, I mean, you just get more for your dollar, I guess, if you want to go to a late night workshop. Mm-hmm. So I'm pretty sure Michelle's going to teach one, and I may offer 1 or 2 others, depending on who's willing and, and what the topic is. But Michelle talks so fast that you might need to listen twice. So.
Speaking of which, do you record the trainings, the workshops?
We haven't yet. You know, this is one of the disadvantages to being a little smaller. We don't have all the technical equipment we'd like to have. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to do it if it's going to be poor quality. Mm-hmm. And I tell you, I have bought recorded sessions from other conferences in the past that were terrible. And it just was really frustrating because I couldn't hear what I wanted to hear because the recording quality was, you know, or you couldn't hear the question, or, you know, you heard too much other noise. And so I do have this is another part of the story, people who have stepped forward to help. I'm going to check into that and see if there's a possibility, if we can record the various things. Mm-hmm. But I'm not going to promise yet. That's
It's
one of those things that might add.
Yeah, exactly. We have to grow into it, don't we? and that's perfectly acceptable. So let's talk about this faculty that God has gifted you
Back
with.
up on something. But what about we will provide, which we did before, we will provide notes for people who attend the conference who will give them a special password so they can access notes. So we don't have to print reams of notes, so they can go to the website and pull those notes down. So we might not record, but we might have the notes available because Michelle writes books of notes.
Yeah, good. Thank you for mentioning that. So let's talk about this faculty that God has gifted you with. We're talking about Eva Marie Everson, Kim Vogel Sawyer, Susan King, Susan Neal, James Watkins, and Bob Hostetler. And those are just a few of the people. It's really an amazing lineup for a retreat environment. And you said earlier that the Lord just opened those doors to help you get people who are well known, highly gifted, well trained, and experienced presenters at other conferences. That's so, and you know this already, but that's so unusual.
I know. Well, and Cecil came the first year, as I mentioned, and when he told me he was retiring and not going to come back, it left a big hole because number one, I need some more males, and number two, I need more nonfiction. I'm sorry, my phone's ringing. It's probably a telemarketer. Anyway, so I feel like from the experience I've had of going to conferences, the people that I was most blessed by. Oh, and I will say, I need to back up. I was going to start this in 2016, and Diane Mills was going to help me. And she offered to do a lot, to teach a lot, to do a lot. It was amazing. But as we got closer to the date for the conference, I saw that we didn't have enough people signed up. That was one of the hardest things I ever did, was to have to cancel it. And so, I remember, I had to tell all the faculty who had already made their plans that I wasn't going to have it. And when I went to cancel with Blue Lake, I put a deposit down, and I was like, I'm going to lose my deposit, but I'm sorry. It won't be worth it. I don't want good faculty to come and have nobody in the room.
Yep.
And so Blue Lake said, well, that's okay. We can hold your deposit and you can do it next year.
Oh.
Next year? I'm like, I'm feeling like a total fail. And she's like, here's another chance. And I'm like, oh. Then I got to thinking, okay, well, Lord, next time I do it, I need to do some things differently. And that's what I felt like he started opening those doors to show me what to do differently. And the large part of it is marketing, as you well know, publicizing and marketing, and finding, reaching people and telling them about it. It was kind of like, if you build it, they will come. That's not necessarily true. Because I built it. But you have to tell them about it.
Yes. Thank you for saying that.
So that, it's not just, you don't just build it. You got to tell people about it. And we're learning that in book world, aren't we? I mean, writers have to promote. They have to market, because now you've got buy mine. So I went into it the next time, and knowing that I was going to do it differently, and I was going to start sooner to tell people about it. And unfortunately, Diane had already committed to being a co-director at Blue Ridge by that time. So she just had no time to do ours. And then that's when I felt like Eva Marie kind of stepped in and helped me kind of guide me through that. So anyway, inviting people, I felt like I needed a male to replace Cecil. And James Watkins had come to the first one. and he was kind enough to say he wanted to come back. For some reason, he likes it. It's a very, you know what, the faculty are telling me, it's a very relaxing atmosphere. It's very laid back. They don't feel like they're rushed. Mm-hmm. And so they like it because I think it's a retreat for them too.
Yeah.
But I got to think, well, what man can I invite to fill Cecil's shoes? And I had been to Blue Ridge last year, and I heard Bob Hostetler speak. I loved him. I'm like, this guy he's just what I want. He's a godly man, and he's funny, you know, and I just enjoyed listening to him. And so I invited him, and I couldn't believe he accepted. I didn't tell him he was going to be Cecil's replacement, but that was another God thing. I did not know that the first year James Watkins and Cecil Murphy had known each other for years, and they had been on a mission trip together. Mm-hmm. So James had stayed at Cecil's house a couple of days on his way to Blue Lake. I was like, gosh, how God connects all these people is just amazing. So now what's funny is that Bob is now James' agent. And I asked him, I wanted to Blue Lake to take credit for that. And when I found out about it, I said, did y'all meet at Blue Lake? And he said, oh, are you kidding me? We've known each other for years. Yeah. We just didn't know we could work together. And they're both, you know, they're both funny guys, both godly men, and their credentials. I didn't know Bob's credentials until after he said yes. And after then I went back and looked, and it was, oh, you're kidding me.
Mm-hmm. Quite impressive.
Huh?
He's quite impressive, yes.
It's one of those things that have you ever been in the presence of someone you think is great, and somebody else talks to them or just whatever, they don't know who they are. And they talk to me like they're not important. In my eyes, they're really important. And I keep thinking to myself, do you have any idea who this person is you're talking to? And that's what I feel like with our faculty. I mean, these are not just anybody. These people are published and knowledgeable and credentialed and godly, and you know, they're trained. I mean, don't we have 2 or 3 of them that have their ministers? You know, mm-hmm. Bob has minister's credentials. James does. I'm trying to think who else. No, Eva has so many credentials. She might have one of those in here. There's so many letters behind her name.
Yes.
And Susan Neal does too. Mm-hmm. And then that's another thing. Susan King was a person, I took her class at Blue Ridge for at least 2 years in a row because she gives you so much information. There's no way you can take it all in at once. Mm-hmm. And she talks fast too. And, you know, a Southerner like me, I listen slow and I talk slow. So it's hard for me to get all that from a person who talks fast. Mm-hmm. But she used to give us reams of notes. And the third year I went to Blue Ridge, I went into her class and she pointed to me and she said, you can't come in here anymore. You've already taken my class twice. You know, and there's like standing room only in there. And I looked around, it's like, okay, I'll let somebody else have my spot. Mm-hmm. But I know she's well liked. Her classes are always full because she talks about nonfiction, about devotions, about article writing, about things that I feel like people feel like they can do easier than writing a book because it's, you know, not so much to ask, you know. Mm-hmm. And that's what I did, you know. I took her class because I wanted to learn how to write devotions. So, you know, Susan loves to teach. She teaches all over the place. She goes I think she teaches 300 days a year.
We have a comment on Facebook. Jenny Cruz, well, Tracy Bradford's here. Thank you so much for being here, Tracy. And Jenny Cruz says, excellent. I'm attending and looking forward to it. Oh, there we go. That's the way it's supposed to work. Thanks, Jenny.
Thanks, Jenny. Yeah. Jenny is a fellow word weaver.
Oh, yes. Well, it's time to close out, but I don't want to close out before we talk about Susan Neal and her scripture yoga. Can you give us a short description of that? It's very unique.
I met Susan at Word Weavers in Destin, and when it was a fledgling group, very small group, and I knew that she did the scripture yoga. And so when I started talking about our retreat, it just hit me. I told you about those early birds.
Yeah.
I said, Susan, would you consider teaching yoga at the retreat early? She said, sure. And so it ended up a full class with more people that heard about it each day coming. And so that was one of the things in the evaluation after the first year. People said, please bring back scripture yoga.
Wonderful.
Okay. And then this past time, she was also led the class for the newcomers, which is something else we have that we hadn't talked about. If you've never been to a conference before, you want to go to a class. Half the people there last year were newcomers. And so Susan can tell you how it works and put your mind at ease. So yeah, Susan's great. And I will take credit. No, I can't. God, for getting her started, because then she ended up teaching scripture yoga at the Florida conference this year. So I'm going to get her on her circuit.
She's very intelligent, and she shares. She's prepared. She knows what she wants to share, but she doesn't go so fast that she leaves you behind. You feel like when she's finished, you feel like you can do exactly what it was she was just talking to you about.
Right. Right.
Thank you so much for being here today, Marilyn Turk. It was wonderful to visit with you.
Thank you. I really enjoyed it too, and I just realized I didn't even talk about the new people I have this year.
Yeah, but it's everything. Yeah, we ran out of time. We covered everything else very well, though. All of the information is on the website. I'm going to post those links just momentarily after the episode is over, viewers. Thank you for being here, because we need you here. Otherwise, there's no purpose for us to be here. This has been Marketers on a Mission, episode number 192. The Blue Lake Christian Writers Retreat Director, Marilyn Turk. Tomorrow, author and speaker Lee Bloom will join me. She's the author of Brave. I love this title. Are you ready, Meryl? Brave is the new beautiful.
Okay.
Isn't that compelling? Brave is the new beautiful. She's going to talk to us about that tomorrow. We're here every weekday at 12 Pacific, 3 Eastern. This program is designed to serve you, to help you learn the craft of professional writing and speaking from those who are already doing it. Because our marketing, our message is online, our audience is online, and we market them, just as Marilyn just said. Having the knowledge is not enough. We have to get it out there and let people know, this is who we are, this is where you can find me, this is how I can help you, these are the results that you can get. All of that is marketing. Thanks very much for being here. We'll see you tomorrow.